diplomatic efforts of the Western powers could not stop Hitler's growing ambitions and only ignited his hunger for more conquests. Poland was invaded by the German army, and it is time for the United Kingdom to declare war on Germany and intervene. There is no solidarity in the ruling bodies, as many are still reluctant to enter the war for the sake of Poland. Yet, shrewd statesmen already see that there is no room left for the political negotiations. From now on, the only valid argument is military strength. You will take the role of Sir Harold Alexander, an experienced and talented British commander. Your task is to get the most out of every situation and lead the British troops to their ultimate victory, however far it may seem. His Majesty King George VI, the Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and the British people have put their trust and their hopes in you. Do not let them down, Sir Harold.
So much for efforts to appease Hitler. It took those dreamers of the Parliament long enough to realize dictators only understand overwhelming power.
Well, my troops are ready and eager to drive the Germans back into Germany.
I wish the French were also ready. I've seen their frontline troops. They're more rabble than an army.
Still, we have more than enough forces to throw the Germans back into their barracks before Poland is overrun. The Siegfried Line won't stop us. It's both unfinished and undermanned.
Our politicians disagree. They declared war on Germany, but it seems like they expect Hitler to back off because of some harsh words.
I take it Prime Minister Chamberlain won't authorize an offensive operation?
He won't. I will get him to come around eventually, but we'll lose precious time while he dithers and dallies.
How much more time does he want? If the French and the British don't strike now, Poland is doomed, along with their hopes of resolving this war quickly.
I'm telling you, the French are not ready to strike, and I won't risk our expeditionary force all by itself.
If the French aren't ready now, they won't be any more ready in a year. They'll learn to fight once they get into action. We must strike now when the German defenses are weak.
That is true, but I won't waste my men's lives. Brooke is right. We need a clear plan.
Finally, a measured opinion. The situation is anything but clear. Gentlemen, any ideas on how we tackle this operation?
Gentlemen, how would you evaluate the outcome of the Saar offensive?
We have achieved all of our objectives. I deem this operation a success.
But did we go far enough? Why did we not capitalize on our advance? We could have kept the pressure on the Germans. Instead, we retreated.
Prime Minister Chamberlain was hoping for a diplomatic solution. He wanted to use the Germans as a weapon against the USSR. My attempts to convince him otherwise bore no fruit. He has made a mistake. You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth.
Well, the partition of Poland has shown us the Soviets' true colors.
Indeed. The USSR has revealed itself to be another great predator of this continent.
And all the while the army is in decay. There's nothing worse for a fighting man than a long absence of action.
Perhaps. But the conditions are not there for a successful offensive in Europe. Our troops are insufficient. Our communication with the French is far from perfect. The only rational move is to strengthen our defenses and prepare for the worst.
That's not very optimistic, is it? Are you suggesting we sit and wait and give the Germans even more time to prepare an attack against France?
Consider the alternative. Should we throw our troops into a European meat grinder like 30 years ago? No, sir. I must recommend we sit and we wait.
Minister Chamberlain is trying to convince Norway to allow us to land in Narvik. If we cut Germany off from the Swedish iron ore supply, we'll deal a devastating blow to Herr Hitler's armaments plan.
And if we don't get the authorization in time? Tensions are high. Norwegian neutrality could disappear at any moment. Could we land without their formal approval?
The whole region may decide to back the Axis if we do. But if we wait until the Axis invades Norway... Any news on Operation Wilfred? Did the Germans take the bait?
Hook, line, and sinker. The German cargo ships were forced into the neutral waters, where our fleet made short work of them. As we expected, the Germans are planning secret landings in Norway.
In that case, we should launch our own landings immediately to get ahead of the Germans.
Too late for that, I'm afraid. They've invaded Denmark. Their paratroopers are already on their way to Norway.
Ah, so the Germans took not only our bait, but the fishing rod and the arm too.
In that case, gentlemen, we have no time to waste. Sir Harold, you are to depart and assume command of the landing operation immediately. Good luck.
A capable commander is worth 10 lucky ones. Keep your wits about you, Alexander.
Sir Harold, why on earth are we withdrawing from Norway? Do you agree with this?
The High Command has reached a consensus that our forces should transfer to France and strengthen the defenses there.
We are frittering our resources. First we blockade Narvik, now we're leaving. This is nonsense. I won't tolerate it. My creed is not a single defeat.
Bernard, I cannot overrule the War Cabinet on this. If you think British forces should stay in Norway, I suggest you convince both Sir Alan Brooke and Sir Winston Churchill to change their minds.
We are not automatons, following their orders no matter how demented they are. If I were you, I would have just left my troops in Norway.
With no supplies and support, I reckon your soldiers would be grateful. And Sir Winston would certainly understand...
Oh, to hell with Sir Winston. I know I'm right. Churchill is wrong. I'll take him to task, or you, or even the bloody king himself.
Which is exactly why I want you in this headquarters, Bernard. But do save your vigor for the Germans.
The British and the French troops have fallen back to Dunkirk. They're encircled and face absolute annihilation.
Hitler is using them as hostages, and he's trying to coerce us into an armistice. Can we do nothing at all? Can we not break through the German lines and rally with the French forces in the south?
We have already tried that. It was no good. The situation is critical. The only way out is by sea.
We cannot evacuate our entire expeditionary force in just a few days. And if our men cannot escape, they must stand and fight. Britain shall not go down in history as a nation of cowards.
If we lose our land army in Dunkirk, Britain will be defenseless. This isn't cowardice. We must give ourselves a fighting chance.
I have read the reports. Our generals and admirals say we can save 20% of our personnel at best. And that is not even counting the Allied troops. We must hold Dunkirk.
Prime Minister, we cannot hold Dunkirk. Not against so many Germans.
Can anyone evacuate 300,000 men across the English Channel in a week?
The HQ has come up with a plan. We call it Operation Dynamo. We will use all our naval vessels and requisition every civilian ferry, sailing yacht, and rowboat we can. We'll get our boys out aboard the biggest transport fleet the world has ever seen.
Madness, all of it. But these are extraordinary times. I will support your evacuation plan, but you must promise me that our troops will hold the Dunkirk area for a week.
I give you my word. Sir Harold Alexander will oversee the situation on the ground. With brilliant field commanders like Montgomery, he might just stand a chance.
So the evacuation of Dunkirk is over. The last of the transports have just departed.
Good Lord, we have made it.
We're the last ones left, sir. The boat is waiting.
We are told that Herr Hitler has a plan for invading the British Isles. This has often been thought of before. When Napoleon lay at Boulogne for a year with his flat-bottomed boats and his Grand Army, he was told by someone, "There are bitter weeds in England. There are certainly a great many more of them since the British Expeditionary Force returned. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." We held our ground and repelled the German raids against the British Isles. Our gallant Royal Air Force has overcome the vainglorious Luftwaffe. The heart of the British Empire is safe for now.
Our coastal defenses are fully prepared to repel any invasion. If the Germans decide to attack, it will be a one-way trip for them.
Gentlemen, for the last few months our focus has been defense. Now that we are more or less secure, I believe it's time to go on the offensive.
Indeed, our forces can now take a more active role in the global conflict, as they well should. General Brooke, brief us on the North Africa situation.
Our troops were forced to retreat, but right now the front is leveled out. As we speak, my staff is working on a plan for a surprise offensive against the Italians.
Good. Good. Why don't we send Sir Harold to take charge?
We could, but, I think the current commander is more than capable of carrying out the operation. Still, Sir Harold might do well in an advisory role.
As someone who's actually fought the Germans, I would gladly advise someone who hasn't. Of course, if needed, I'm ready to take charge. But you must understand, one can't take the responsibility without the accompanying authority.
Well put, Sir Harold. Very well. Take command of our forces in Africa and do away with the Italians. Like you just did with Sir Alan.
The Japanese Imperial Army has started a large-scale offensive in Burma. They mean to take our oil fields there. Our troops are overwhelmed, and at the risk of encirclement.
Then what are we waiting for? Send in the reinforcements.
We cannot transfer enough troops in time. The situation there is critical.
I'm getting tired of your defeatism, Sir Alan. I've already lost count of your critical situations this month alone.
Sir Winston, there is no call for sarcasm. It is simply a fact. Our current forces in Burma stand no chance against the Japanese.
We shall see about that. Sir Harold, I am appointing you the commander. Sort it out.
Fine. General Alexander, When you arrive in Burma, try to get in touch with General Stilwell, the commander of the U.S. forces in China. He is in dire straits as well, so you'll do well to coordinate your efforts.
I am sure General Alexander will make the situation a lot less critical.
I will have to travel there and assess the situation firsthand. Perhaps our only hope is a measured withdrawal.
We cannot afford to lose Burma.
We have already lost it.
Our continued military failures are concerning. Why is this? Can it be that the British soldier lacks fighting spirit?
As I told you, Sir Winston, our situation in Burma was hopeless. General Alexander did what he could, but it did not help much. I would suggest a more talented commander for our next campaign.
It seems your regard for Sir Harold is not the highest.
Both Montgomery and I were his instructors at the Staff College. He did not strike us then as the most able commander. His recent efforts have done nothing to change my opinion.
Do you wish to suggest an alternative?
The situation is dire. It calls for a skilled tactician with a firm hand. Bernard Montgomery is the best we have.
Did he tell you that himself? Montgomery may be a fine officer, but he has the ego of a monarch. In the field he may be unbeatable, but in the headquarters, unbearable.
I'll admit he is eccentric, but a capable commander counts for more than a proper gentleman.
And General Alexander is both those things. A commander-in-chief must set an example and build morale, and not just know the tactics. Alexander is the leader we need. I'm sure he will bring us victory. Thank you for facilitating the inspection of your troops. I see spirits are high and our men are eager to get to grips with the Hun. It is time this army scored a victory.
Sir Winston, I agree. I'm already preparing the plans for our next offensive.
And who will command the 8th Army?
I think William Gott is the man for the job. I've been pleasantly surprised with his results at the head of 7th...
But Prime Minister, General Montgomery is clearly the better choice.
I must say that Montgomery has performed well so far. I would be happy to have him at the head of the 8th Army.
Gentlemen, your opinion is noted, but my mind is made up. Additionally, Sir Harold, I hope we can start our offensive in September. We must pave the way for a successful US landing in Africa.
You've heard about General Gott.
The air crash? Yes, nasty business that. And the 8th Army is now leaderless.
As much as it might surprise you, you are mistaken. Brooke talked the Prime Minister into appointing you to the job. The 8th Army is yours. Congratulations, Bernard.
Bloody hell. Are you quite sure?
As I live and breathe.
Well, well. After having an easy war, things have now got much more difficult.
Don't be disheartened. I'm sure
I'm
we'll
not
manage
talking about
it.
me, I'm talking about Rommel. Tomorrow we'll start turning this war around. I'll order that all plans and instructions dealing with further withdrawal are to be burned. At once.
Our men could use some of your confidence.
Come and see our troops in a week. You won't recognize them.
I hope they'll keep their insignia at least. There's one more thing to discuss. Sir Winston wants us to launch the offensive in September to support the upcoming US landings in Africa.
In September? What in God's name is Winston thinking? We need more time.
I don't like this any more than you do, but I'll need a solid excuse to let you delay the offensive.
I see what you're saying. In that case, General Alexander, the offensive cannot happen in early September because of German subterfuge. But it cannot happen in late September because of the phases of the moon. Consequently, it cannot happen in September at all.
Phases of the moon. Right. And in October?
And in October, it is a guaranteed British victory, on my word as an officer.
Very good. I'll hold you to that word, Bernard.
The sooner we open the second front in Europe, the better. What do you think of Operation Sledgehammer?
As I understand it, you are planning to send only a few of your American divisions to land on the European mainland. So the operation would be mainly a British undertaking. The problem is, after 3 years of war, our numbers are also weak. This is a terrible failure in the making.
The USSR keeps on insisting the Allies widen the war effort. We must help the Soviets and take some pressure off of Stalingrad.
A failed landing in Europe would help neither us nor the Soviets. We must lower our sights. Before crossing the channel, let us eliminate the Axis presence in North Africa.
Sir Winston, are you saying you oppose the Allied landings in Europe?
Not at all. But we simply lack the forces to land in Europe this year. Instead, we should engage the enemy in Africa. There we can mass forces in a combination the Axis forces cannot hope to oppose. All the while, we'll keep building up troops and materiel for a proper landing in Europe.
A sound plan. But if that's the case, I insist that General Eisenhower leads all Allied troops in Africa. The United States will only commit major forces to an operation led by an American.
Congratulations on your appointment, Supreme Allied Commander.
Thank you, Sir Harold. It is an honor to serve alongside you. Frankly, I would have been more than glad to serve under your command had a British general taken this position.
That is an interesting thought. But we have a major operation before us. General Eisenhower, how do you see the upcoming battle shaping up?
Our plan is to land at 3 locations in North Africa. Our objectives are to take control of Algeria and Morocco, and to neutralize or destroy Vichyist forces.
Did you meet with General Giraud? Will he take command of the Vichy armed forces if they defect to our side?
The starting price was the command of the entire Allied Expeditionary Corps. I had to disappoint him.
I see. He doesn't sound very reasonable, does he?
Eventually he agreed to commanding just the Vichy French, if they surrender.
I doubt the Vichy forces will even follow Giraud, especially if he arrives with the British troops. They could not have forgotten the Royal Navy's attack on their fleet in 1940.
Indeed, which is why we should tread carefully and encourage the Vichy troops' surrender with minimal bloodshed. To that end, I suggest we make this operation look like a United States affair.
Ah, so your plan to reduce Allied losses is to downplay the role of the British Army.
General Brooke, I'm sure General Eisenhower is quite sincere in his desire to save British lives.
Absolutely. My only goal here is to minimize all Allied casualties.
Of course. I am pleased to see the two of you in agreement. That is the kind of Allied cooperation we will need to win this war. But Alexander, I should caution you, never forget what uniform you wear. Our American cousins certainly will not.
Up, you lamies. The cavalry has arrived. We'll throw the Nazis out of Africa in no time.
Oh, joy. Another Yankee here to tell us how to fight our war. My men crushed Rommel at Al Alamein while you were still lounging on another continent.
Bernard, I'm sure General Patton didn't mean to offend
We
you.
turned this goddamn war around. You won at El Alamein? My boys steamrolled over all of Morocco and Algeria.
Your green troops only survived because There wasn't a single Jerry there to meet them.
Bullshit. My boys are the finest bunch of killers on this continent. They'll go through the Hun like shit through a goose. Be ready to take notes.
You were a fool playing cowboy. The British have been waging war longer than your country has even existed.
Oh, that's it. Name the time, the place, and the arms.
Stop it, the both of you. Is this how officers are supposed to act? I'm sure our men have all fought valiantly, but they rely on our plans. So let's cooperate.
Right. Rommel has yet to be finished off.
He is a soldier who knows his business. I read his book.
A Yank who reads? Now that's a novelty.
Why, you little pipsqueak.
Gentlemen, we're here to defeat the Germans, not jump at each other's throats. Tunisia is a tough theater, so we'll have to maneuver swiftly and aggressively to win here. The U.S. Army under General Patton will advance from the west, and General Montgomery will lead the British 8th Army to attack from the east.
Splendid. An entire country between me and Patton's big mouth. I will enjoy the silence.
We're both braggarts, but I admit it. And I deliver the goods.
Please. I have not lost a single battle.
That's easy when all you do is hide behind sandbags and shell the Hun for weeks. Feel free to stay in your dugouts while my boys sweep through Tunisia.
Enough. The both of you. This is disgraceful. I want none of this nonsense during the operation. You're on the same team. I want you keeping your heads cool and leading your troops by example. Save your anger for the enemy.
Yes, sir.
Good news. I convinced Roosevelt to postpone the landing in France yet again. It will happen in 1944.
Excellent. That will allow us to invade Italy this year, and make sure we are prepared for the Normandy landings.
Indeed. But this time, Brooke, we can have no more delays. Now we must keep our word to the Americans.
As Chief of Army Staff, I would choose saving British soldiers' lives over keeping some commitment to a foreign power, under any circumstances, Prime Minister.
That is why I am telling you no more delays. If we drag our feet any more, the Soviets will conquer all of Europe. Britain cannot allow that.
Agreed. I will make sure the invasion of Italy is successful. Then, we'll be off to France.
We are about to return to Europe, gentlemen. The invasion of Italy has been greenlit.
Have you reviewed the plan of operation I suggested, Sir Harold?
I had a preliminary discussion with General Eisenhower. So far, there have been no major objections.
Excuse me. No objections? It's a shoddy plan. Landing at two separate locations and attempting a pincer maneuver right after the landing? That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Have some courage once in a while, Monty. My plan will let us quickly encircle and destroy the enemy, instead of hitting him in the face with another by-the-numbers frontal assault. It is a calculated risk, quite different from being rash.
It is a calculated suicide. Jerry won't sit still and let you encircle him. We'll be throwing our troops into a trap. The right thing to do is to land tidily, shoulder to shoulder, and keep a united front.
Gentlemen, I heard you. I will speak with General Eisenhower and make sure he knows your concerns. We have decided on Montgomery's plan. Both armies will land close to each other and protect each other's flanks.
Ha! Eisenhower might be an American, but even he can't argue with reason when he sees it.
If Ike has approved of this plan, then I will comply. One prima donna among us is more than enough.
Name-calling won't win battles. My Tommies will be taking Messina before your GIs even get inland.
I'll remember those words of yours when my Shermans roll first into Messina, and you British are eating American dust.
I have just returned from the Tehran conference. The Allied High Command has made its decision. The Normandy landings will take place in 1944.
Have you also decided who will command the operation?
Yes, Sir Alan. I know you wanted that position. I think you more than deserve it. But the Americans pushed for Eisenhower, and I agreed. The United Kingdom needs you at the table of the top commanders, always advocating Great Britain's interests. As Supreme Commander, you could not do that. You would have to compromise.
I fail to see how placing an American officer over all of our troops is in the British national interest. On a note like this, I might as well retire.
I hope that you do not. You remain the head of the British military. And if this Eisenhower isn't up to the task, we'll need a brilliant mind like yours to support him.
I am not agreeable at the best of times, and with fools and amateurs, even less so.
All the better. You and I have had our disagreements, but always for the good of our country. Let the Americans hear your arguments. The moment you are too fearful or too tired to speak your mind for Britain's sake, that is when you should retire.
Thank you, Prime Minister. That's high praise, coming from a conversationalist such as yourself.
You are a brave and loyal servant of His Majesty, and the greatest patriot I've ever known. Sir Alan, King and country will thank you for your service. Together we will see the British Lion victorious once again.
This whole Italian affair reeks of incompetence. Lack of coordination, disorganized forces, contradictory strategy, and even worse, where's our initiative? With this command of yours, Sir Harold, it's a miracle we made any progress at all.
That's what you do when things get tough? Blame your superiors? Disgusting. You were marking time in Sicily, while my all-American boys took Messina.
Showboating does not win wars. I stand by my strategy. There is a time to strike and a time to hold back.
And a time to allow your enemy to regroup and counterattack. Bravo, Monty. One hell of a strategy you've got.
There is no point in discussing strategy with someone who doesn't understand it. It is time for me to depart to London and help plan the Normandy landings. Sir Alan Brooke has already been informed.
You're running from the battlefield, you little wretch. In the U.S. Army, we have a thing called discipline. An American soldier never quits until he is victorious.
I've seen your discipline. Hitting your own wounded at a hospital takes a big man to hit a fellow who can't fight back.
What on earth are you talking about?
You better ask Patton himself, and quickly, before every newsman in the European theatre comes knocking on his door.
General Patton, please stay after the meeting. It appears we have to talk.
Down to business. Who should be in charge of planning Operation Overlord?
I propose General Alexander.
Indeed. Sir Harold commands respect among both the British and the American personnel. I have nothing but praise for him after North Africa.
Cooperation is a factor. But for planning a large-scale operation like this, I'd rather assign an officer with a superior strategic mind. Bernard Montgomery is the right man for the job.
What a surprising choice.
The best British general, according to the newspapers. But I have to say certainly not the most cooperative or pleasant. My officers had a hard time dealing with him.
Montgomery's all ego and no tact. Coordination among the Allied troops might suffer for it.
Sensitive egos of some senior officers might suffer, you mean? Montgomery's military talent is undisputed. If we must accept his manners to have a plan that saves lives, we're all grown men here, aren't we?
I'm beginning to think you have a horse in this race.
Not at all. To be frank, Montgomery is butting heads with Alexander in Italy right now. I want to put his talents to good use here in London. That will allow Alexander to finish the Italian campaign in peace, so to speak.
Agreed then. Monty comes to London. But not just him. We will have to redeploy thousands of troops from Italy to Britain to carry out the landings in Normandy.
We could leave General Patton in Italy, under Alexander's command.
Patton was temporarily removed from command after the slapping incident. I have a special assignment for him.
Well, then General Alexander will have to conquer northern Italy, with neither Monty nor Patton under his command. Let's hope he can manage it.
My congratulations, Sir Harold. The liberation of northern Italy goes well. Meanwhile, Allied forces are making headway in Europe, and the Reds are pushing the Germans from the east. It won't be long now before this bloody war is over. Pardon my language.
I'm glad the day is finally in sight, Sir Winston.
Yet there is still fighting to be done. That's why I prevailed upon General Eisenhower to appoint you the Supreme Commander of the Mediterranean Theater of Operations.
Thank you, Prime Minister. It is an honor and a privilege.
The honor is deserved, Sir Harold. You made this victory a reality.
I don't know what to say, Prime Minister. Thank you. I was simply doing my duty to the King and the country.
Ah, some refreshing humility. A mark of a true gentleman.
Thank you. This terrible war has given far too many an excuse to lose sight of proper conduct.
I believe one such man is our mutual acquaintance, and I happen to have news about him. I have ordered you promoted to Field Marshal for your valiant capture of Rome. You will perhaps notice that this means you took the rank 2 months ahead of Montgomery.
Oh dear. Monty certainly won't like that.
Monty could use not being in the limelight for once. It is thanks to you that the British have stayed in the fight, even past the bleak first years of war. And now we are coming back, with all the might of the New World behind us.